Right, let's catch up now with those Human Rights Commission hearings into last year's unrest. Now, in response to the July unrest, most social media posts were reactive, some openly celebrating the violence. That is according to Jean Leroux from the Digital Forensic Research Lab. Leroux says one of the most active Twitter accounts during the unrest was that of the former president's daughter, Duduzile Zuma. He was unpacking the role of social media for the South African Human Rights Commission hearings today. eNCA reporter Slindelo Masekane has been following that, and she joins us now. Hello, Slee. So, Jean Leroux from this Digital Forensic Research Lab, talking about the role of social media during the July unrest. Tell us a little more.
Well, certainly this testimony today had a lot to do with what we saw unfolding in those weeks, in that 2-week period during the July unrest. And what Jean Leroux was saying was that his organization had monitored social media around that time in terms of hashtags that were making the rounds, in terms of Twitter accounts that were seemingly peddling disinformation. And there's a difference, Sally, between misinformation as well as disinformation when it comes to what we're seeing in the age of social media, because when someone is peddling misinformation, they are doing it without the intent, without a malicious intent. But if you're peddling disinformation, that means there is a malicious intent and there is a reason why you're trying to spread this fake news. So what Jean Leroux was telling the commission today was that his organization noticed that there were a certain number of phrases and hashtags that were doing the rounds around that time, which incited a lot of the violence that we saw, speaking specifically to the incarceration of the former president, as well as the account of his daughter that was using old videos to show that people were, unhappy with the incarceration of the former president, and also, using hashtags such as jailed without a trial to incite people to get behind the former president. But let's just take a listen to what he had to say.
What we found is that from most of the posts around the July unrests were almost reactive. These were people who were using the unrests for their own political objectives. There were lots of, the usage of, the ubiquitous "we see you" posts that were doing the round. They were used as a way of celebrating what was happening in KZN. In some cases, even old and misleading footage was used, from totally unrelated protests from years ago to further those same kind of narratives. And a lot of this was celebratory. It was used in a way that celebrated, the unrest and celebrated the violence that accompanied it.
And Leroux also focused on Jacob Zuma's daughter's activity on social media, how she was celebrating aspects of what was going on. Tell us more about that.
So he mentioned her accounts in particular, as well as the hashtag the Phoenix Massacre, in terms of showing the commission that there were certain Twitter accounts that were, inciting people to gather, inciting people to, show their dissatisfaction at the incarceration of the former president, but also highlighting that they were using old videos to kind of show that, things were happening recently, but these were old events that were being associated with the incarceration of the former president. Let's take a listen once more.
One of the most vocal accounts was the account of President Zuma's daughter. She was one of the accounts that was most engaged in the celebratory part of the post. She would take posts of buildings burning and then have a tweet below that saying, Amandla, we see you. And she did this quite prolifically throughout the period of the unrest. In some cases, she was also the one that took truck protests from the year before and then attached that same statement to those tweets, giving the impression that these are protests that are happening in support of her father's and his incarceration.
All right, thank you very much for bringing us the latest from those Human Rights Commission hearings into the July unrest. That's eNCA reporter Slindile Masekane.